Every few centuries, something happens that does not just change history, it breaks it, it snaps the thread completely, and when the world reassembles on the other side, it looks nothing like what came before. We tend to remember those moments as wars, as revolutions, as the rise and fall of great leaders. We like our history to have faces, battles, decisions, moments where a human being made a choice that changed everything. But sometimes the thing that breaks the world has no face, no name, no agenda, no awareness at all of what it is doing. Sometimes it is just a bacterium on a flea on a rat on a ship. This is a story about one of those times. It is the story of the first pandemic in recorded human history. A catastrophe so total and so complete that it killed 1 in every 4 human beings alive on Earth, ended the Roman Empire, redrew the map of the entire world, and then was almost completely forgotten. It is called the Plague of Justinian. It began in 541 AD, and almost nothing about the world we live in today, the borders, the religions, the languages, the countries, would exist in its current form without it. This is that story, and it begins like all the worst things do, on a ship. Chapter 1. The Last Good Morning. It is the year 541 AD. And you are the most powerful person in the world. Not Justinian, the emperor, not a general, not a senator. You, an ordinary person living in Constantinople, and that makes you extraordinary. Because Constantinople, in 541 AD, is something that will not exist again for 1,000 years. 500,000 people. Clean water piped directly into your home. Heated floors. Marble streets, a harbor so busy that on a good morning you cannot even see the water. Just the masts of 1,000 ships from China, from India, from Egypt, from Spain. Your emperor has just finished building the greatest church ever constructed, the Hagia Sophia. He walked inside it on the day it opened and said, out loud in front of his entire court. These are his actual recorded words. Solomon, I have surpassed you. And he was not wrong. In a few weeks, his armies are going to complete the reconquest of Italy. The Roman Empire, the whole thing east and west, the way it was at its peak, is coming back. You can feel it. Everyone can feel it. After a century of fragmentation and loss, the greatest civilization in human history is pulling itself back together. And then one morning, your neighbor does not come outside. You knock. No answer. You push the door open. What you find inside is the first sign of something that is about to kill 1 in 4 human beings alive on Earth. Something that will end Rome. Not weaken it, end it. Something that will erase borders, redirect every major religion on the planet, and reshape a world that took 5 centuries to build, in less than a decade. And here is the thing that should bother you most about this story. Almost nobody today has ever heard of it. Ask 10 people to name a plague. 9 of them say the Black Death. Maybe 1 says the Spanish flu. Almost nobody says Justinian. But this one came first. This one was bigger. And this one changed more. This is the story of the first pandemic in recorded human history. And it begins, like all the worst things, on a ship. Chapter 2. The World Before. Before we talk about what the plague destroyed, we need to understand what it destroyed. Because the reason this story hits so hard is not just the death count, it is what was dying with the people. London, in 1800, one of the largest cities on Earth at that point, had around 1 million people. London in 1400 had maybe 50,000. London, in 541 AD, had around 15,000 people living in the ruins of a much older Roman city. Constantinople, in 541 AD, had 500,000. That is not a typo. A city in the 500s AD with the population of modern-day Atlanta, with running water piped directly into homes and public fountains, with sewers that actually worked, with heated floors, a technology that most of Europe would not rediscover for over 1,000 years, with street lighting, with hospitals, with a functioning postal system. Your Emperor Justinian has just completed the Hagia Sophia. A building so mathematically precise, so perfectly balanced, that engineers today still study it and still do not fully understand how it was built with 6th century tools. He built it in 5 years. The equivalent project today would take a decade and cost $10 billion. When he walked inside for the first time, he stood in the center, looked up at the dome floating overhead and said, "Solomon, I have surpassed you." That was not arrogance. That was a man accurately describing what he had done. Justinian had spent 20 years methodically rebuilding what had been lost. North Africa, taken back from the Vandals. Italy, taken back from the Goths. His navy controlled the Mediterranean. His legal code, the Corpus Juris Civilis, would eventually become the foundation of almost every legal system in the Western world. The Roman Empire was coming back, slowly, painfully, but it was genuinely, actually coming back. Now, zoom out, past the city, past the empire, all the way to Central Asia. Somewhere in the region around modern-day Kyrgyzstan, a bacterium has been living quietly in the rodent populations of the steppe for centuries. It has no agenda. It does not know what a Roman Empire is. It does not know what a human being is. It just lives and spreads and waits. It is carried by rats, spread by fleas that live on those rats, moving west along the Silk Road trade routes, city by city, bale of silk by bale of silk, merchant ship by merchant ship, invisibly, patiently, without any awareness of what it is doing. By 541 AD, it has reached Egypt, specifically the port city of Pelusium, at the eastern edge of the Nile Delta. Egypt was the breadbasket of the Roman world. Every ship that fed Constantinople left from Egypt, hundreds of vessels a month carrying grain, spices, cloth, animals, and people, all flowing north toward the greatest city in the world. And now something else is flowing with them, something invisible, something patient, something that has just found the densest concentration of human bodies anywhere on Earth. Something that is about to discover what it can really do. Chapter 3. What it did to your body. His name is Procopius of Caesarea. He is a historian living in Constantinople in 541 AD. He is watching everything happen in real time, watching his city die around him, and writing it all down. He is the reason we know what we know. His accounts, cross-referenced now with modern DNA analysis of excavated mass graves, give us one of the most detailed pictures of any ancient catastrophe in history. This is what Procopius records about the disease itself. The swellings appeared suddenly, in the groin, the armpits, the neck. Some grew as large as an apple. Some burst open, others hardened and never resolved. The patients fell into a deep coma from which they could not be woken. Others fell into a violent frenzy. Those who were delirious ran through the streets, threw themselves from windows, walked into the sea. The disease was caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. You know it by another name. The bubonic plague, the exact same organism that would kill a third of Europe 800 years later as the Black Death. Same bacterium, different century, same horror. Here is how it worked. A flea bites a rat. The rat dies. The flea jumps to the nearest warm body, which is now you. The bacterium enters your lymphatic system. Your immune system tries to contain it. It fails. The lymph nodes swell into dark, hot, agonizingly painful masses called buboes. In your groin, your armpits, your neck. Fever hits within 24 hours. Then delirium. Death came between 2 and 10 days after the first symptom appeared. But here is what makes the Justinian plague uniquely terrifying. It did not have one form, it had 3. Form 1 was the bubonic form, fleas and rats, the swellings, 2 to 10 days. This was survivable in maybe 30 to 40% of cases, with rest care and luck. Form 2 was the pneumonic form. When the bacteria reached the lungs, it became airborne. No rats needed, no fleas needed. Just breathing the same air as someone who was dying was enough. And in a city of 500,000 people, packed into buildings stacked 6 stories high, sharing courtyards and wells and markets. Everyone is breathing the same air as everyone else. The pneumonic form was almost universally fatal. Form 3 was the septicemic form. The bacteria enters the bloodstream directly. No swellings, no warning at all. Your skin turns black from internal hemorrhaging. You feel completely fine in the morning. You are dead by afternoon. Procopius documents cases where patients showed no visible symptoms whatsoever and simply stopped. A doctor would examine them, find nothing alarming, and within hours they were gone. There was no pattern he could identify, no way to predict who would die, no medicine that touched it. Nothing to do except watch. That is the thing that breaks a society, not just the death, the total helplessness, the complete absence of anything you can do, the randomness of who lives and who dies. Your neighbor survives, your child does not. There was nothing, there was only the waiting. Chapter 4. The city that choked it is the autumn of 541 AD. 6 months ago, the harbor of Constantinople was the loudest place in the world. You could stand at the waterfront and count 1,000 masts on a calm morning. Now it is silent. The ships have stopped coming, not because of a war, not because of a storm, because the sailors are dead, or they are too afraid to sail, or both. The grain warehouses are running low. Constantinople, this magnificent, impossible city, is beginning to starve on top of dying. Procopius walks through the main street of the city and writes that he can hear his own footsteps. The shops are closed, not because it is a holiday, because the shopkeepers are dead. The markets are empty. The public baths are closed, silent, empty. At the peak of the outbreak, Procopius records that 10,000 people are dying in Constantinople every single day. Let me give you a comparison that actually makes that number land. The September 11th attacks killed approximately 3,000 people. The United States still has not fully emotionally recovered from that. More than 2 decades later, we built a memorial. We built a museum. We have a national day of remembrance. Constantinople was losing more than 3 times that number every single day. For months, the graveyards filled within days. Mass graves were dug outside the walls. They filled within weeks, and then someone made a decision that tells you everything about how far gone things were. The roofs were removed from the great defensive towers built into the city walls. The bodies were thrown inside, stacked layer upon layer, floor to ceiling, until the towers were full. Then the roofs were replaced, and the towers were sealed. The smell reached every corner of the city. People began wearing name tags around their necks, not as fashion, not as custom, so that when their body was found, however it was found, wherever it was found, whoever discovered it would know who they had been. Think about that for a moment. In the greatest city in the world, in the most advanced civilization on Earth, people were putting their names around their necks every morning because they knew they might not make it home, because the city had lost the capacity to identify its own dead. Justinian himself caught the plague. He survived, which was almost miraculous. But Procopius records that the man who emerged from that sick room was not the same man who had entered it. Something had broken, something permanent. The dream of a fully restored Roman Empire was dying in the streets below his palace window, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Chapter 5. Total collapse. Here is something that history class never teaches you about pandemics. It is not the dying that destroys civilization. It is everything that stops working when enough people die. Think about your city right now. Think about the specific human beings who keep it running. The truck driver who brings food to the grocery store. The water treatment engineer who keeps your tap water clean. The electrician who maintains the power grid. The ER doctor. The supply chain manager. The person at the IRS processing your taxes. The judge, the police dispatcher, the teacher, the farmer. Now remove 25% of them. Not selectively, randomly. 1 in 4 people, across every job, every system, every institution. all at once. How long before the supermarket shelves empty? How long before the water stops being treated? How long before the systems that keep a modern city alive start to come apart? This is what happened to the Roman world. Not gradually. Suddenly, the tax collectors die, and the government has no money to pay the army. The farmers die, and the food stops being grown. The soldiers die, and the borders have no one to defend them. The merchants die, and the trade networks that kept Roman cities alive for 5 centuries go quiet. Not because the roads are gone, because there is no one left to travel them. Procopius travels through the provinces and writes that the roads are completely empty. No travelers, no merchants, no animals being driven to market, no soldiers on patrol, just empty roads through empty countryside. He writes, and these are the words of a man describing what he is seeing with his own eyes, that he cannot tell whether he is passing through a land of the living or a land of the dead. Entire villages found with no survivors, not most of the population, everyone. Crops rotting in the fields because there is nobody left to harvest them. Doors standing open, no movement, no sound. And here is the detail that I think is the most devastating part of this entire story. The plague did not come once. It came back 18 times over the next 2 centuries, wave after wave, returning to the same populations every 10 to 20 years, killing the children who had been born too late for the last wave, killing the survivors of the wave before, who had thought they were finally safe. Every time they began to rebuild, it came back. Every time a new generation grew up that had not lived through the last wave, it came back. Every time someone said, maybe the worst is over, it came back. 200 years, 18 waves, no explanation, no cure, no end in sight, just an invisible enemy that kept returning to a civilization that was running out of people and running out of time. Chapter 6, how it changed everything. Now here's the part that should genuinely change how you see the world you are living in right now. Because the plague of Justinian does not just destroy, it creates. Consequence 1, the death of the unified Western world. Justinian's dream of a restored Roman Empire is completely dead within a generation of the plague. The territories he spent his entire life reconquering, Italy, North Africa, Spain, are lost almost immediately after his death. There are no soldiers left to hold them. No money to pay for soldiers even if they existed. No functioning system to organize anything even if there were money. The machine just stops. The unified Roman world fragments, not gradually, suddenly, in the space of a single generation. In its place, small chaotic competing kingdoms begin to form across Europe. Local warlords consolidate what they can. Regional languages that had been suppressed by Latin start to re-emerge. Trade networks that had crossed the continent contract to local markets. Those kingdoms slowly become France. They slowly become Germany. They slowly become Spain, England, Italy. The map of modern Europe, the countries you see on it today, the borders, the languages, is born directly out of the collapse that follows the plague of Justinian. The Middle Ages do not begin with a dramatic battle. They begin with an empty street, a sealed tower full of bodies, a civilization too exhausted and too depleted to hold itself together anymore. Consequence 2, the rise of Islam. This is the consequence that genuinely rewires your understanding of world history when you fully grasp it. And I want to walk through it carefully, because it deserves the full setup. The Arabian Peninsula is largely spared by the plague. The desert trade routes are different, less dense, less connected to the Silk Road corridors where the disease traveled. Population density is lower. The bacterium never takes hold in Arabia the way it does everywhere else. So while the Byzantine Roman Empire and the Persian Sassanid Empire, the 2 most powerful empires on earth, are being hollowed out by 2 centuries of plague and a grinding, exhausting war with each other, something new is emerging from the Arabian desert. The Prophet Muhammad receives his first revelation in 610 AD. That is 69 years after the plague of Justinian begins. By the time of his death in 632 AD, both the Byzantine and Persian empires are shadows of what they were. Their armies are at a fraction of their former strength. Their treasuries are empty, their populations are depleted, their leaders are exhausted, and the early Muslim armies, smaller and less equipped, but unified by a new faith and moving with absolute certainty, move through those weakened territories with a speed that astonishes everyone who witnesses it. Egypt falls in 641 AD. Syria falls. Persia, the great Sassanid empire that had been Rome's equal for centuries, falls completely by 651. North Africa falls. Spain falls by 711. All of it, an area larger than the continental United States, absorbed into a new Islamic civilization within a single human lifetime. The modern Middle East, as we understand it today. The spread of Islam across North Africa and into Spain. The Christian kingdoms that survive in Northern Europe and eventually become Western civilization as we know it. The boundaries between these worlds that still shape our politics and our conflicts today. All of it, every piece of it, shaped, redirected, and ultimately created by rats on a ship in a port in Egypt in 541 AD. Chapter 7. The Plague Nobody Remembers. The plague of Justinian killed between 25 and 50 million people in a world of approximately 200 million. 1 in every 4 human beings alive on Earth, gone. In some regions, Egypt, North Africa, the Eastern Mediterranean, historians estimate that up to 60% of the population died. In some cities, not most people died. Everyone died. The entire population, gone, and almost nobody today has ever heard of it. Ask 10 people on the street to name a famous plague. 9 of them will say the Black Death. Maybe 1 will say the Spanish flu. Almost nobody will say Justinian. There are no famous paintings of it, no monuments to its 50 million dead, no annual day of remembrance, no museum, no cultural memory at all. And here is why that happened, and why I think this is the most haunting part of the entire story. The civilization that lived through the plague of Justinian was so completely shattered by it that it barely had the capacity to record what had happened. The scribes who would have written the accounts were dead. The libraries were understaffed by governments with empty treasuries. The artistic tradition that would have produced the paintings was interrupted for generations. The government that would have commissioned the memorials was gone. The institutions that carry memory forward through time, the churches, the schools, the courts, the workshops where one generation teaches the next, were gutted. History remembers what survives. The plague of Justinian made sure that very little did. In 541 AD, a ship arrived in a port in Egypt. The ship carried cargo. The cargo carried rats. The rats carried fleas. The fleas carried something so small that no human being alive at the time could see it, name it, or understand it. And that invisible, nameless, unseeable thing ended the Roman Empire, built the Middle Ages, drew the borders of the modern world, determined which religions would define the next 15 centuries of human civilization, killed 1 in every 4 human beings alive on Earth, and then was forgotten. If the world you live in today seems permanent, if the map on the wall looks the way it has always looked, if the civilization you were born into feels like it was inevitable, remember 541 AD. Nothing is permanent. Everything that exists today exists because of something that has already vanished. This is vanished world, and this was the plague that broke Rome.